Okay, let's dive in. What if humanity had, like, a secret weapon? A foolproof way to dodge extinction?
Like an ultimate backup plan.
Exactly. Imagine a world where every single person had a hidden duplicate. You know, a clone raised somewhere totally isolated.
Ready for, well, the ultimate reset button.
And that's what we're exploring today, this really chilling concept someone brought up, the clone lottery.
Yeah, it's immediately fascinating
Yeah.
and deeply unsettling as a thought experiment.
We're looking at this world where, totally unknown to everybody, there's an identical copy of you.
Genetically the same, but yeah, it's zero personal history, no lived experience.
Just kind of waiting. Potentiality waiting for the absolute unthinkable.
And the trigger event here, it's not slow, is it?
No, not at all. It's a cosmic knockout punch.
Sure.
Massive gamma ray burst heading right for Earth.
And barely any warning. Hours, maybe.
Right. So forget complex plans. The only move is Project Continuance.
Or as it gets grimly called, the clone lottery.
And when this thing goes live, the protocol is brutal. Only one of you, the original or the clone, gets a ticket out. One survives.
So the sheer speed, the scale of something like that. Yeah, it would demand swift action. Decisive, however brutal.
Project Continuance really becomes this stark example of survival instinct overriding everything else.
It's utilitarianism pushed to its absolute extreme, isn't it?
We see it all through the eyes of, let's call them our protagonists, just living their normal life. I think they were even heating up soup or something mundane.
Yeah. The ordinary colliding with the extraordinary.
And then this bizarre alert pops up. Continuous processing! Suddenly, these sterile figures show up.
Cold efficiency, verification.
And they drop that phrase, "You're the primary." Which initially sounds kind of important, privileged.
It does, yeah. It implies priority, like you're the foundation.
But that feeling doesn't last long, does it?
No, that initial assumption gets flipped fast, revealing something much more complex and unsettling.
So they take you down deep underground, this hangar. Says nightmarish.
Surrounded by other people, all equally bewildered, I imagine.
And then you see it. Thousands. Thousands of you. Your exact double. Perfectly formed.
But the eyes.
Yeah, the eyes are blank. Empty. Just gives you chills.
Seeing that, so many identical beings, but without that shared past, what does that even tell us about what makes someone you?
That visual really cuts right to the core, doesn't it? Are we just our genes?
Or is it the whole tapestry? The memories, the connections, the experiences? Is that the real essence?
These clones, physically identical but empty inside, it forces that question on you. Hard.
And then comes the announcement, echoing in that huge space.
One survives. The other is terminated.
Random selection. Just pure chance determining your fate.
All for the survival of the species. The protagonist just horrified.
Yeah.
Tries to protest.
But it's futile, right? Useless against the system.
Yeah. It's not a safety net. It's basically a potential death sentence delivered like reading the weather forecast.
Clinical detachment, that's the terrifying part. The individual is just reduced to a component.
A part in a big, ruthlessly efficient machine for a continuation.
And that immediate reaction, that visceral horror, it underlines how much we value our own existence.
A value that this whole Project Continuance just seems to ignore. Toss aside for the greater good.
The lottery itself. Agonizing. Standing there face to face with your clone.
That countdown timer ticking down. Relentless. The sheer weight of it all.
And then the result flashes up. The devastating blow.
Survivor clone. Not you. You're double. The one who hasn't lived a single day of your life.
That specific moment, that arbitrary choice. What does that say about how we value a life already lived versus one that's just potential?
It highlights the tragedy from the primary's perspective, obviously.
Yeah.
That deep instinct for self-preservation just slams against this random selection.
Yeah, someone with no history gets picked. It makes you question the criteria. What makes someone worthy in that scenario?
And the protagonist is pleading, right? Trying to explain my memories, my relationships, my life.
All that weight of lived experience versus the clones. Well, blank slate. It's tabula rasa.
It's heartbreaking. And the clones reply. So simple.
Yeah.
Almost childlike.
That's not my fault.
Which is, logically true, maybe.
Yeah.
But zero comfort. Zero.
None at all. It just highlights how impersonal, how terrifyingly mechanical the whole process is.
And the clone's statement, short as it is really impactful. Just they're both trapped, right?
Exactly. Neither the primary nor the clone asked for this. No agency.
Yet both face the final consequence. one way or the other.
Then the primary gets dragged away to
Uh-huh.
holding cells with other discarded originals.
Hearing those sounds,
Oh,
the termination,
oh God, that must be.
and the slow dawning horror, the realization that the originals, they were never the plan A for rebuilding.
It's a brutal twist. The clones were considered better.
Healthier, yeah. Somehow
Yeah.
cleaner without the, quote, taint of life's experiences.
Our histories, the very things that shape us, suddenly become a liability, a flaw.
What's the logic there? Valuing potential over actual lived experience in such a drastic way.
It exposes this really deeply unsettling philosophy, doesn't it?
Yeah, the idea that a blank slate, without the scars, the trauma, the individuality, maybe even dissent, is better for rebuilding society.
It's chillingly utilitarian. It makes you question what qualities a society or the architects of this plan actually value in survivors.
But the protagonist doesn't just give up. That desperate escape attempt,
Mm-hmm.
that raw will to survive.
Against impossible odds, that resilience.
And they make it back to the observation deck, seeing rows and rows of clones getting the survivor tag.
And the faces of the other primaries who survived. It's not joy, is it?
No, it's grief. Profound grief, which tells you everything about the real cost of this safeguard.
Even in survival, there's this overwhelming sense of loss. Biological survival doesn't mean a meaningful future, not when it costs so much personally.
It really challenges the idea of what a good outcome even looks like here.
And then the unthinkable happens.
Runs into their own clone, right there on the observation deck.
And this clone isn't just some blank automaton.
No, he's experienced bits of the protagonist's life through downloaded memory fragments for continuity.
Imagine that, your most intimate moments, suddenly accessible to this other being.
What ethical lines does that even cross? Transferring memories, the core of personal history.
It's fascinating and deeply problematic, ethically. It blurs identity, right? Giving the clone this secondhand experience.
A shared connection, sort of, but totally incomplete.
And the specific memories the clone recalls. Small things, intimate
The
things.
mother's laugh, sneaking ice cream as a kid, a first love,
The tiny moments that actually make up a life.
and the clone feels them. He's emotional, grateful even for these borrowed glimpses.
Which is incredibly moving, and then he says it.
But I am not you.
And I can't live with that.
Wow. That statement, what does that tell us about the value of actual lived experience, even when survival itself is on the line?
That's the huge turning point. The clone, designated to survive, given a future, he recognizes something's fundamentally missing.
His own journey, his own history.
And without that, the potential future feels meaningless to him, empty.
Which leads to this extraordinary act.
He reassigns the survivor status, gives it back to the protagonist.
Selflessness. From a being designed purely for contingency.
The protagonist tries to protest, of course, futilely.
And the clone's final words, "Then I will die having lived a little."
So poignant. He chose to give up his existence for the sake of the original's lived past.
It forces you to ask, what really is a life worth living? Is it potential or is it experience?
His sacrifice just throws the whole cold, utilitarian logic of the program into sharp relief, doesn't it?
Totally. By valuing the primary's past over his own future, he gives his own short existence this incredible depth, meaning moral weight.
Something that completely transcends his intended purpose in the system.
So the protagonist makes the journey to the continuous vault, the arc, basically.
And that final image on the screen, the clone.
Termination complete. Just
Yeah.
stark, chilling, and unforgettable end to his brief story.
And then, 50 years later, the survivors awaken.
10,000 people, half clones, half primaries, in a world of ash, tasked with restarting humanity.
The program worked on a macro level. Humanity survived, technically.
But that question hangs heavy, doesn't it? Especially for the protagonist, who truly deserve to live.
And how do we even define deserve in a situation like that?
The ethical mess, the individual tragedies, the moral questions, they just linger.
The protagonist's internal struggle probably captures that perfectly. That tension between pragmatism and the value of a single human life, a single consciousness.
So we come back to that first idea, the safeguard. For the primaries, it sure didn't feel like one.
No, it was a brutal lottery where your own life, your history, could be deemed less valuable than untapped potential.
What does this story make you think about how we, in the real world, value experience versus potential? Do we sometimes dismiss the lived reality for the shiny promise of the new?
It's an uncomfortable question, definitely. What do we value in a life? How important is personal history? The ethics of sacrificing individuals for the greater good.
It really pits biological continuation against the survival of, well, everything that makes us individuals. Consciousness, memory, experience.
And the clone sacrifice is the emotional heart of it. This being never meant to live, conventionally speaking.
But the impact on the primary, it endures. That recurring memory the protagonist has.
The way he smiled, like he'd just seen himself for the first time.
Yeah, it speaks volumes, right, about the clone finding some kind of self, some authenticity in that final act.
In choosing sacrifice, he defined himself, found a purpose his predetermined existence denied him.
Which leaves you, listening now, with something heavy to chew on.
In that extreme choice, a life fully lived versus a life of pure potential, what does this story make you consider? What's the fundamental value of lived experience? How does it stack up against potential?